Verse 14, the day is coming when you will see the sacrilegious object that causes desecration, standing where he should not be. Reader, pay attention. Then those in Judea must flee to the hills. He says, now get out. Now get out. Fast. Okay, those things were happening, and I wanted you to hold fast. When you see this, now is the time for action. Now is the time to get out. There's a specific event here. There's a specific thing that when the people see it, they should be able to recognize it, and they would leave. The abomination of desecration, or desolation. Standing where he should not be, in the most holy place. So then the natural next question is, what is the abomination of desecration or desolation? What is that? What is that? Now remember, Mark was writing this book to people thousands of years ago, right? Right before the temple was destroyed, by the way. He was writing to a people who probably had a little bit better idea about what that means than us. However, Mark still puts in there, he puts in that little clause, reader, pay attention. And that should make the alarms go off. He's basically saying, hey, reader, you might need to think about this. You might need to stop going autopilot and think about this. This is very important, what this thing is. This expression, abomination of desolation, has been used before. Multiple times, actually, in Scripture. We see it in Daniel, 3 separate times. Daniel 9:27. The ruler will make a treaty with the people for a period of 1 set of 7, but after half this time he will put to an end the sacrifices and offerings, and as a climax to all his terrible deeds, he will set up a sacrilegious object that causes desecration, until the fate decreed for this defiler is finally poured out on him. Daniel 11. His army will take over the temple fortress, pollute the sanctuary, put a stop to the daily sacrifices, and set up the sacrilegious object that causes desecration. Daniel 12. From the time the daily sacrifices stopped and the sacrilegious object that causes desecration is set up to be worshipped, there will be 1,290 days. So that's literally the same words. It's the same thing. And different translations of the Bible translate differently. They say the abomination of desecration, the abomination of desolation, the sacrilegious object that causes desecration. This term is also used in the book of Maccabees. Now, if you're Catholic, you would know that the book of Maccabees, you know what that is, because that's part of the canon of the Catholic Bible. The book of Maccabees was written about the story of Hanukkah. So after the Old Testament with Malachi, that last book, after that, we don't have another book until Matthew. Okay? There's a whole span of time that is just silent, called the silent years. In the middle of that time, we have the books of Maccabee, the book of Maccabee, and it's about Hanukkah. So a Greek ruler by the name of Antiochus Epiphanes, which means God manifest, desecrates the temple of God, and he killed he did a lot of bad things. And 1 Maccabees 1:54 says this: on the 15th day of the month of Kislev, in the year 145, the king erected the desolating abomination upon the altar of burnt offerings, and in the surrounding cities of Judah they built pagan altars. So, back to the question. What is this abomination of desolation? What even is it? So if you look at the wording in the NLT, we read out the NLT, the New Living Translation. If you look at the wording, they do a really good job of portraying the confusing grammar. There's some confusing grammar around this phrase. Okay? The sacrilegious object that causes desecration, standing where he should not be. See, that's weird, because a he usually isn't an object. And so the translations, the translators try to translate this, right? Greek is a gendered language, and it doesn't really match up. It doesn't match up right. So the way they did this, I really like, actually. They say he, an object, is standing where he should not be. So this could be referring to an actual thing, an object, or it could also be referring to a person putting the object. There's some confusion there. There's some confusion. Let me go over a couple of possible explanations of what this could actually be referring to. In 26 AD, Pontius Pilate tried to have Roman soldiers display a bust of the emperor in the temple. Okay? That could be what he's referring to. In 40 AD, Caligula, Caesar, attempted to put a statue of himself in the temple. It never actually happened, but it made a big giant panic. It's a huge panic. In AD 70, because the Emperor Titus destroyed the temple. I mean, clearly there were people in the temple doing things they shouldn't be doing. Desecrating the temple. It was completely destroyed. Completely destroyed. And another possibility is that this is some future event. This hasn't happened yet. This is a future event in the future. What I believe is that Jesus was referring to AD 68. It was just 2 years before the destruction of the temple. Now, again, I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna preface this. When we talk about end time stuff, this kind of stuff, I'm not gonna be up here dogmatic. This is what you have to believe. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. Okay. Very important that we know what this is. However, I don't think it's a church splitting issue. I don't think it's a church splitting issue. You come to me with a different Jesus, I'll split with you. Okay? That's reason. That's reason. You get the gospel wrong, I'll split with you. But when it comes to, I believe the resurrection happens here, I believe it happened. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Let me hear about it. I want to hear about it. So that's quick cap. But I'm just going to give you what I believe. So here it is. 2 years before the destruction of the temple, there was a civil war between Jewish zealots. Okay, they took control of the temple and appointed a high priest. The way they appointed this high priest was by casting lots. They cast lots. They didn't recognize the line of Levi. I mean, it was totally sacrilegious what they did. They set up a high priest, desecrating the temple in that way. They also murdered priests right on the steps of the altar. We have a description of this by Josephus. He says, they invaded the sanctuary of God with their unhallowed violence, turning the holy courts into a place of armor, spears, and blood. And the reason I believe that this is what Jesus was referring to is because of the timing. The timing of it it just lines up perfectly. The next verse here, then those in Judea must flee to the hills. A person out on the deck of a roof must not go down into the house to pack. A person out in the field must not return, even to get a coat. So the timing here is 2 years before the destruction of the temple. Okay, the complete destruction of the temple. 2 years before. And then Jesus says this, you must get out when you see this thing. Now, we're reading this and going, well, wait a second. 2 years? Pretty sure I can get my coat in 2 years. Pretty sure I could, like it seems like he's saying, do it now, and that's possible. All right, it's possible this is literal. However, I'm going to put to you that this is hyperbole. This is Jesus saying, when you see this thing happen, do not think that you have time. Don't think that you can just live your life normally. It's time to get out. It's time to go find another place to go. It's time to take action. And we see this language a lot in Scripture. We see it a lot. Where there'll be big, giant exaggerations, big, giant, proclamations of things. And the point is, they're trying to put an exclamation point on something. They're trying to make a point by using hyperbole. Next week, I'm going to go more into this. And also apocalyptic writing. There's a whole style of writing that we just don't really have today anymore. And I just want to show you where we get this from Scripture. Where we see these kinds of amazing things, these very exaggerated things, and then what that actually looks like in history. Because the Bible talks about it. It'll have these incredible things. The sky went dark, the stars fell, and then something actually happened, and it was like, wait, the stars, it's like, okay, that's apocalyptic language. We'll go over it next week. All right, moving on. Verse 17. How terrible it will be for pregnant women and for nursing mothers in those days. and pray that your flight will not be in winter. Okay? This is how bad it's going to be. This is how bad this is going to be. Something that should cause joy, something that should be so joyous a thing becomes terrible in these circumstances. And notice what he's asking you to pray for. Pray that your flight isn't in winter. He's saying pray that it's going to be easier on you. He's not saying pray that this won't happen. Judgment is already happening. Jesus says this is already going to happen. This is not like Jonah and Nineveh, where he went and the people repented and God turned away his wrath. This is not like that. Jesus is saying this is going to happen. The fig tree is withering. This is going to happen. Pray that it's lesser than you want it to be. But it's going to happen. Verse 19, for there will be greater anguish in those days than at any time since God created the world. And it will never be so great again. In fact, unless the Lord shortens that time of calamity, not a single person will survive. But for the sake of his chosen ones, he has shortened those days. Possibly more hyperbole. The type of language here. He's trying to grab you. He's trying to tell his readers in a way that they'll get. Okay? And this kind of language, it's more of an attention grabber than just like statistical language. See, we have statistical language here. We have scientific language. But if you say something like, 100,000 died, last week and wherever, it's like, yeah, that's heavy, but like this is descriptive. It grabs you in a different way. Okay, it's a different type of language. Verse 21, then if anyone tells you, look, here's the Messiah, or there he is, don't believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will rise up and perform signs and wonders so as to deceive, if possible, even God's chosen ones. Watch out. I have warned you about this ahead of time. Here's where I'm going to land, okay? Don't be deceived. False prophets, false messiahs, they will rise up and they will deceive with spiritual power. They will deceive with signs and wonders. Something that might be real doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Okay? They are going to deceive with spiritual power. Now, in the world, we don't really see this a lot in San Diego, but in the world, there is a ton of spirituality. People are spiritual. People are super spiritual in the world. San Diego, we're pretty dry, to be honest with you. We're pretty dry here in San Diego. I would say pretty much all the religions are dry in San Diego for some reason. I don't really know why. We moved to Hawaii, super hot spiritually. I'm not talking about Christians. I'm talking about just in general. People are in touch spiritually. Went to India, super spiritual. Everything's spiritual over there. Bali, super spiritual. I mean, the world is spiritual. Very, very spiritual. In every culture, every time period, spirituality, very, very important. And I'll say this, a lot of the world's spirituality is fake. A lot of it is fake. A lot. You should look up like fortune teller scams. I did this week. There's a ton of them. I'm like, how can I do this? No, there's a ton of fortune teller scams. Tons of them. There's curses, like curse scams. Curses is not really a thing that we do, but in other cultures, curses is a huge thing still. You pay someone to write a curse for someone, and you like hide it in their house somewhere. And there's like businesses revolving around finding curses, and it's total scams. Total scams. I believe that we're able to be tricked this way because we want to be. Humans want to be spiritual. We want to experience something greater than the physical. We like long for it. We desire it. And so when we see someone doing something spiritual, sometimes we just kind of let ourselves be tricked. He found a curse in that. It's amazing. He told my future. Like, I see you have trouble with love. It's like, yeah, okay. Okay, yeah. Oh, you're having money problems. Yeah, okay.
Someone told me I was only going to have 3 kids.
See? There you go. There you go. Yeah.
I was like,
And you probably paid them too, right? Darn it.
yeah, it just came out.
Okay.
Trying to get me to go in.
It's amazing. It's
I was trying
amazing.
to go show her where
But check this out. Check this out. A lot of it's fake. A lot of it's not. A lot of it's not fake. A lot of it's real spirituality. And it is demonic. It is demonic. Now, I'm not talking about people openly worshiping Satan. Now, that does happen, right? I mean, shoot, man. It's crazy stuff right now. I mean, we see that all over the place. It doesn't take long searching around to see, like, wow, there are some high people doing some crazy stuff, openly joking about worshiping Satan, right? It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm not talking about that, though. I'm talking about spirituality actually producing something, okay? Like creating a feeling, telling the future, talking to the dead, but it leads you away from Jesus. It leads you away from Jesus. It pulls you away from God. When someone has a spiritual experience, whether it's real or fake, you tend to trust that thing that brought it. Whatever it is that brought you that spiritual experience, you're willing to trust it. I'm telling you right now, if the source of the spirituality does not point you to Jesus, it is a deception. It's a deceiving spirit. Here's one of my warnings to us. As parents, I've seen this in pornography, guys. I've seen this in pornography. Okay? I grew up around this. We grow up here. San Diego is not a spiritual place. When we raise our kids, I mean, a lot of time we raise them without any concept of spirituality. Even in the church. It's like, oh, the Bible's good for morals, No spirituality. That's just big science, And then they go out in the world, and what happens? You move to Hawaii, you move to Bali, you move somewhere where there's a spiritual experience, and all of a sudden, bam, you get this spiritual experience, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is real. It must be true. Wow, Hinduism. Wow, Buddhism. Like, oh, this is real. It's real. It's absolutely real. It's not true. It's not true. Deceivers always pull you away from Jesus. And they put the emphasis on something else. They'll put the emphasis either on themselves, or, more popular in the West, is to put it back on you. You're having this spiritual experience for you. This is for your betterment. This is for you. And listen, Satan is not a creator, guys. He is a deceiver. He is a corrupter. He destroys things. He corrupts things. God is the creator. When we talk about spiritual things, okay, pretty much all the spiritual things that you see, those were created by God. Used by Satan in deceptive ways. Let me give you some examples. I mean, the first big one, the big giant spirituality thing is sacrifices. Almost every culture had some sort of sacrifice where they kill something. Okay? That came from God. That came from God. Where do sacrifices lead us as believers? It leads us to the cross. It leads us to the ultimate sacrifice. It leads us to Jesus. When it's not that, when it's a sacrifice another way, it leads you down some crazy path. Jesus is the fulfillment of the sacrificial system. Satan has taken this spiritual concept and he's twisted it. He's twisted this concept. Speaking to spiritual entities. Speaking to spiritual entities. Listen, our God is the one who sends angels to people. We actually have a connection to God right now. Okay, you can speak to God through the spiritual. Okay, God's the one that made that up. Satan has taken this and twisted it. Every time an angel comes to someone, every time God sends an angel, it is to point them in the right direction. It's to point them back to himself, to put them on his purpose, to tell him his plan. When Satan does it, okay, he twists it. It's twisted to gratify yourself. So much so, I mean, you guys know this, so much so that there's even a game by Hasbro that you can buy to talk to spiritual entities. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, it's like, oh my goodness. And listen, vast majority of the time you play with that board is fake. Okay? It's fake. It is you and your friends. It's fake. Not every time. Not every time. It's not always fake. And what does Jesus say? He says, watch out. He says, watch out. You have been warned. These people are going to rise up, and they're going to use spiritual power to deceive you, to deceive lots of people. Just because something is supernatural doesn't mean it's true. Very real doesn't make it true. Now let's take this concept over to the abomination of desolation. The abomination of desolation. The NLT puts it like this: the sacrilegious object that causes desecration. What is the reason this thing is so bad? Why is this thing so bad? Why is this the thing that marks destruction of the temple? Here's the beginning of destruction. Okay, the abomination that causes desecration. That is where the beginning of destruction of the temple starts. Why? Why? Well, let's go through it. The abomination. An abomination is something that causes disgust or hatred. Let me ask you, who is being disgusted? God. It's an abomination to God. Desecration is damaging something that's holy. It's the removal of sanctity. So what is being desecrated? The temple. So what we have is God being disgusted at the loss of holiness of his temple. All right, ready? Here we go. You are God's temple. See? You are the temple of God. The temple's purpose was to worship God. It was a place that people could come and they could commune with God. They could speak with God. They could worship God. It was God's dwelling place on earth. Your purpose is to worship God with your temple. It is to commune with him. It's to be with him. And you are now God's dwelling place on earth. 1 Corinthians 13. Don't you realize that all of you together are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God lives in you? God will destroy anyone who destroys this temple. For God's temple is holy, and you are that temple. Romans 8. And Christ lives within you. So even though your body will die because of sin, the Spirit gives you life because you have been made right with God. The Spirit of God, who raised Jesus from the dead, lives in you. And just as God raised Christ from the dead, he will give life to your mortal bodies by the same Spirit living within you. Ephesians 3. Then Christ will make his home in your hearts as you trust in him. Your roots will grow down into God's love and keep you strong. John 14. Jesus replied, all who love me will do what I say. My Father will love them, and we will come and make our home with each of them. The abomination of desecration in a spiritual sense is something other than God standing in the place of God, demanding unacceptable worship. You need to be careful. There's one throne, okay? There's one throne of your life. There's one throne in the temple. Who is there? Who is there? Anything other than God, that is an abomination. It's an abomination. And by the way, we don't get to choose what acceptable worship looks like. We have it laid out for us. Acceptable worship. We don't get to choose an acceptable object other than God for our worship. There's one acceptable object of worship, and there is a laid out way for us to worship him in an acceptable manner. See, it's an abomination because it is man standing where only God has a right to stand. And the lesson is this, okay? Don't set up an abomination of desecration in your temple. You were made to worship. We were all made to worship. Choose to worship God. Choose to worship Jesus. Do not be deceived. Doesn't matter if some angel comes to you. Doesn't matter if some supernatural experience you have. Do not be deceived. It is God. It is Jesus who deserves all the praise, all the worship. So I'm going to have the band come back up. Let me just read a couple verses. Let's all stand. Let me read a couple verses about what acceptable worship looks like. Here it is. John 4. But the time is coming, indeed, it's here now, when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. The Father is looking for those who will worship him that way. For God is spirit. So those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. Hebrews 13. Therefore, let us offer through Jesus a continual sacrifice of praise to God, proclaiming our allegiance to his name. And don't forget to do good and to share with those in need. These are the sacrifices that please God. In Romans 12. And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all he has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind he will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship him. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. Let's worship.